The Detroit Lions lost a playmaker for the season, man. Brian Branch is out for the season. We just got the news early this morning, and then it was confirmed within a few hours that Brian Branch does have a torn Achilles, and he is going to be out for the season. Now, during my live stream of the breaking news on Lion Syndicate, we had a discussion about the future of Brian Branch and what do the Detroit Lions do now. Now, we did take a safety who is out, Dan Jackson, and he will get some time to shine next year. But when it comes to Brian Branch, what kind of timeline are we looking at here? When we look at this, this is devastating for Brian Branch from a human standpoint, from a player standpoint, and from a financial standpoint, because now you're talking about going into a contract year trying to get your bread up. And we all expected Sam Laporta to be the odd man out. And now the question that I put before you, the chat, is if you are Brad Holmes, what do you do here? What do you do here? Now, you do have the franchise tag that you could use. And again, this is not for about a year and a half away, but Brian Branch was in for a pretty substantial payday. And now both second-round picks from 2023 are on injured reserve. Season is done. And both of them are questionable, really, if you look at it, to return for 2026. I mean, Sam Laporta, don't know how that back issue is going to kind of heal. And when it comes to Brian Branch, you're talking about a solid, he's going to start the year on the PUP list. Just like Aleem McNeil did and Josh Pascal did, he's going to start on that list. So what does this mean? And if you're Brad Holmes, what do you do? Do you let him come back in November and play out the rest of his season if he can come back and earn himself a contract? Do you let it ride out and sign him to a one-year deal? Do you let it ride out and maybe franchise tag him? So I am not going to I don't know what Brad is going to do, but I put it before the chat. If you're Brad Holmes, what do you do here? In all likelihood, you're not going to see Brian Branch until November. So you're going to have his body of work and his sample size for the rest of the year to kind of judge what kind of deal you want to give him. Now, let's remember as well, when it comes to Achilles injuries, man, they are hard to come back from. We saw Emmanuel Mosley. He went down, came back. The second one gave way, and he wound up being down again. So I think Emmanuel Mosley spent essentially 3 seasons on injured reserve. We've seen cornerbacks go down with Achilles tears, man, and they're not the same. Now, I think Tre'Davious White, he came back from one, so people can do it. Brian Branch is young enough to do so. But my thing is, if you're Brad, what do you do? What do you do? Do you risk locking him up in the offseason? Again, Aleem McNeil was locked up prior to his injury. Kirby Joseph was locked up prior to his injury. Aiden, they waited to see what the result was going to be. And then we locked up Aiden. And Aiden's new money hasn't even started yet. It doesn't even start until 2027. So Aiden's going to be a Detroit Lion for the rest of the decade. But Brian Branch is up for grabs. And I'm wondering, and I hate to say this, I don't think we've seen the last of Brian Branch in Detroit, but we might have seen the best of his time in Detroit. Because think about it, he's not going to come back until midseason, and then you have the other, you have to make a decision. So Melodrama says we keep Brian Branch. Okay, well, if we keep Brian Branch, what kind of deal would you give him if you're Brad Holmes? If you're Brad Holmes, what would you do? Would you franchise tag him? Would you give him like a 1-year, prove it deal? That's crazy to talk about a prove it deal with a guy who's early on in his career is proven. Brian Branch, I mean, the first 2 years, we had no complaints. And then year 3, he's gotten suspended, kind of lost his cool a little bit. It seemed a little off when it came to his play on the field. Just maybe that was missing his running mate, Kirby Joseph. But I will say that if Brad Holmes decides to take a safety, we do have Dan Jackson, but if somehow he decides to take a safety or something like that in the draft, then that might point to Brian Branch. Let me ask you this. Do you think this changes the outcome of whether it's Sam Laporta or Brian Branch? I don't know. It's too early to tell on both of them. You don't know if Sam is going to come back, how that back injury is going to heal after surgery. And this is a torn Achilles is a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal. We brought this up on Lion Syndicate, but I want to show you guys what what kind of timeline that Brian Branch is looking at when it comes to recovery. Now, this is coming from Google, obviously. None of us are doctors, but it says recovery from a torn Achilles tendon can take 4 to 9 months, with full return to high-level sports activities, which is what Brian Branch is, taking 6 to 12 months. Okay, so if we say 6 months, let's say he's like the Bionic Man, 6 months from right now puts us at the beginning of June. So that's right around OTAs that he would be if he could be ready for OTAs, and that would be on the quickest timeline possible. Of course, 12 months would take the entire, which means that we literally would not see Brian Branch until the end of the season. The last stretch of his rookie contract ending for the last 5 games. It says the timeline depends on factors like the severity of the tear, age, overall health, and whether surgery is performed, where there's no doubt it's going to do that. While many people can return to normal walking within about 3 months, regaining full strength and function requires a dedicated physical therapy and rehabilitation program. So he will be 100% in that, and obviously he's got the Lions strength and conditioning, and when I took a tour of the facility, I know exactly where he'll be. But my thing is, what does this mean for Brian Branch and the future, his future as a Detroit Lion? Of course, he's still a Detroit Lion next year. That's not going to change. But then you have his timeline earliest as possible. I'm talking about perfect situations. He's just a freak. He comes back and he's ready for OTAs. In all likelihood, that's not going to be the case. He's going to miss the first 2 months of the season. He may come back after, we're talking, let's just say, let's give him the Aleem McNeil situation, where maybe in October, his 21-day window opens and he's ready to go by November. And then you know who he reminds me of? And it's sad, and I hate to do this to you guys because I know this is going to be a touchy subject, but we have to look at this as a business, right? This is a business, and we love these people and as players. And if you take the personal out of it, this is a business. And even though I think that Branch is a better player, we talked about this before, is that I could see, and I know a lot of y'all are not going to like this, I could see a situation where Brian Branch is kind of in that Ife Melifonwu kind of realm where you play out your rookie contract. Now, Branch has not been, of course, he's better than Ife. He has not been as hurt as Ife. Ife was hurt all the time. But at the same time, the Lions have to make a decision between Laporta and Brian Branch. And if Laporta can give them a bigger sample size than Branch can in a contract year, then how do you make that decision? But what if the Detroit Lions, who haven't franchised anybody in over 10 years, what if they decide that, you know what, we're going to move on from Brian Branch? I mean, think about it. Think about it. We talked about this earlier on the show, and I saw last night. Ian Rappaport reports that Jahmyr Gibbs is about to get a payday, that he is the number one priority this offseason for the Detroit Lions, as we've all predicted he's going to be. So if you're going to prioritize Jahmyr Gibbs, you got to pay Jack Campbell. That is a no doubt. It leaves you Sam Laporta and Brian Branch. And if Sam is able to give you a little bit more on his resume, what decision are you going to make? This is a tough spot for Brad Holmes to be in. But I will say this, man, I'm devastated for Brian Branch as a person, as a player, and his pockets took a massive hit. A massive hit. If you look at what the Lions did with Aiden Hutchinson, they let him come back. Now, you could argue they paid him too early. I don't think they did. Hutch's money doesn't even go into effect until 2 years from now. So he's not even making $45 million. By the time Hutch gets 45, he'll be in the prime of his career. So I think they did a smart thing because the number was only going to go up. So they locked him up now. So I'm devastated for Brian Branch from a human, from a player, financially wise, man, because it sucks. And on top of that, his brother coming back with Kirby Joseph, and now he's not going to play. And then you think about the trickle-down effect on the team. We know we have been next man up since Brad and Dan have taken over. But now Kirby Joseph is coming back, and it looks like they kind of fed off each other, man. You know what's funny is y'all like Seek and Destroy. I liked Vintage and Carnum. And you know what's great about it? And I think Carnage and Venom, that's what I meant to say, that they were symbiotes. And doesn't it seem like Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch fed off each other, just had that symbiotic relationship? Kind of feels that way, right? So I don't know, man, but let me know what you think in the comments below. I don't think this is the end for Brian Branch, but I don't know, man. It's going to be a tough decision that Brad has to make because, again, this is a business. That this is, at the end of the day, that's what the NFL is a business. And if you have to make business decisions, and we've had to see people leave before, maybe Brian will be one, maybe he won't. Let me know what you think in the comments below. All right. Comments below. That's the wrong. Let me come back to me. There we go. Now, let me know what you think.